Oh, perfect. So my name is Adam Bean, and welcome to JavaOne. Who is the first time here? First JavaOne. That's incredible. This is my first here. All other JavaOnes were in San Francisco. I think it's my 10th or something like this. And this one is actually great, and I'm surprised that so many, very good, so many developers. And what's also cool, maybe 10 years ago, I delivered a similar session, and the idea was to show you the div. But because you never saw my sessions, it was pointless. So I got the idea today morning and yesterday to refactor the entire presentation. So now it's not like it should not be, so what I'm doing. So I deleted all the slides, there's more code. So it's a good news, right? Interestingly, what I hate to speak about the topic twice. So there is another presentation from JFocus. It was like a few weeks ago with the same title, but the content you will see is different. So there were just slides, others were mostly code. So this is actually cool. So we have one title. This is my hack. Actually, I submit something and talk about something different. So now, OK, PDF, exactly. So what I'm talking about today is actually common sense. But I'm surprised that if someone says that, it improves the situation, right? What I saw in projects, in enterprise projects, you know what cargo cult is, actually? This is people are doing something and no one knows why. And Java was actually very famous for that, because there were lots of patterns, layers, and no one knew why, and we did it until Python, Node.js, and everything else happened, and they don't do it, and therefore they are a little bit more productive than we are. And then my point was, years ago, we could also delete the stuff, right? We don't have to write 20 layers to see a button on the screen. Maybe one class is enough. And this is the talk about, basically. So it is obvious, but not that obvious, because I always still have to fight with architects and projects. So I'm a freelancer. I'm working with Java since 1997. Mostly in projects, backend, I do Java all the time. Currently, Java 21 everywhere, because it's LTS. How I get Java 21, the first hack or workaround, if you go to management and say, it is not true, maybe you can cut it out later, but what I say, all the Javas are not that secure. We need the recent patches, and otherwise, maybe someone could do something to us, and then we get Java 21. Whether it's true or not, I don't care, but it's good for my clients, right? But it's good for my clients, and this is the reason why I do it. And so we have Java 21 LTS everywhere, right? If the project runs longer, for instance, in one project on serverless, there was no Java 17 even. So we create our own runtime, and we knew that it will come out. So we've worked with Java 17. The project went to production, we got Java 17. So sometimes we do crazy things, right? LTS. Yeah, this is Airhacks Industries. Someone asked, hey, Airhacks, how the company is going? There's no company, just me, I'm a freelancer. And immediately after the conference, I registered Airhacks Industries. If you go there, you'll see my GitHub and Blue Sky or whatever there is. So you want a picture, of course. But I like Java. That's all. Why? Because we don't have to discuss a lot. So we pick Java, it's good enough, and we are productive. This is mainly the reason, right? And Oracle does a really great job moving Java forward. And in big projects, Java is actually very popular because it is backwards compatible. So it is not actually true for any other language, I would say, right? So maybe there is one, but I don't think so. So it will be interesting, actually, to find out, is this something comparable to Java, which remained 30 years stable, or 20, or even 10, right? This would be interesting to know. OK, there's a podcast with some stuff which is relevant. For instance, the boundary control entity. What I will show you very soon is my way to structure applications, boundary control entity. But the first next hack is don't invent your stuff. Try to find a standard, so you then have to talk about that. And my hack was Ivar Jacobson from UML introduced boundary control entity, wrote some books about that. Since then, I use his stuff and don't have to just justify why it is like it is. I'll read his book and you will know, right? So, but the cool story is I did it for years. And I was curious whether I did it right. So I invited him to my podcast and explained what I'm doing. And thankfully, he said, OK, what you are doing is compatible with my idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't publish the podcast, of course. But it's actually a nice one because, yeah, I think he's 70 or 80. And he was one of the creators of UML. You know what UML is? Yeah, this is like drawing tools. If you need some boxes to convince people, you can draw something. What you draw doesn't matter, but it looks more professional, right? So this is, don't tell him about that, right? So he was really, okay, so now, any questions left? First Monday of the month, you can ask me whatever you like, similar to here. Oh, and this one was accident. I don't have time to explain why, but there's 850 or maybe even 1,000 Java shorts, like 30 seconds with Java. And why I'm doing this, because people ask me, no, Java is hard. It's really hard to read a file. Like really, this one-liner. So I record it short, mostly in meetings. They are sometimes boring. So this is actually a cool thing, to hack the code. OK, workshops. The book is old, but this is based on the book and Java and clouds. First, I do Java in the clouds all the time. If we have cloud, if we don't have cloud, it's Kubernetes on premise. What I have to hear over and over again, Java is too slow or not cloud native, whatever it means. Truth is that Java is actually perfect. So Java is number 5, energy efficiency and performance, which means is, I have to stay here. Sorry. So there's C, Rust, C++, and ADA, and means Java is a little bit slower than ADA. So if you like to save even more money, you have to learn ADA, right? Or stick with Java. So this is why I don't learn ADA right now. There's also no ADA1, I think, right? So, but what is the alternative? Python consumes 35 times more memory and is 35 times less energy efficient as Java. So it means if you would do something in the cloud with Python, I mean something means for loops or algorithm, not calling a database, something which does something, right? We will have to pay 35 times more than Java in worst case. So, and this is why I do Java in the cloud, because the first time in the history, we can convince management is good for business and budget, and there is no discussion. Also cool, right? So this is if you don't believe me, this is the research. There are lots of algorithms, whatever, you can go there, and this is the reason, right? Rust would be faster a bit, and C as well. The problem with Rust, it is really hard to learn for business applications, and you won't find developers. And what I like about Java is obvious. If you look at the source code, it's really hard to write that bad code that no one knows what's going on. Even if you decompile Java code, still after a while, you will know what's going on. OK? Everyone agreed so far?
Where is Scala? I don't see Scala.
Maybe it's so slow that it's not even on the page. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy that I found something when Java is on top 5. So this is if Scala would be faster, I wouldn't show you this, right? So this is postmodernism. So my impression is we can achieve a lot right now, and I ask myself why, because my impression is we can do whatever we like right now. So even 5 years ago, it was very strict. There was no hard architectures, whatever. And if something doesn't work, I came in, I delete lots of stuff, and it's fine. 10 years ago, it would be fights, meetings and managers and whatever. And now it just works. Or just works. You can do whatever you like. OK, structure. So the first thing, how to structure applications. Structure, domain business first. So what domain business first means is forget about DAOs, DTOs, and whatever. I forget that anyway about them. But if you know the names, don't use them for structuring. If you would structure the JavaOne here, right? So what we will have, I would expect packages. I use packages Java with a meaning, and a package would be maybe events, sessions, speakers, attendees, what else? Travel and store. This is the top level packages. So if someone opens the JavaOne application, it already sees, looking at the packages, what is going on. So this is actually what you learn at school, right? Use packages as a package. And what I see in projects is crazy stuff. Like service, DTOs, VOs, mappers, foundation, models, whatever sounds good and doesn't mean anything, right? So, and this is the first thing is I spend most time with naming, and I rename stuff constantly. And I think this is the right thing. And technical names in business project are forbidden. Someone asked me this week, what is enterprise? For me, enterprise means larger projects with some bureaucracy and esoteric stuff. This is enterprise. But if in large enterprises, we also do kind of a startup projects, and there is no difference between startup and enterprise. So what often happens, we get some budget, small team, and then it looks like in this small team like a startup, right? So there's not a lot difference between startups and enterprises. What's more difference is between a product and project. So in product, we spend more time with automation, versioning, and really testing. And in projects, it really depends, right? Any questions? So domain business first, it means, unfortunately, you have to know about business. I have also fight with a consultant years ago. He stood up and said, yeah, what are you talking here? Then we have to know, the business logic. We have to learn, the use cases. Yeah, what I'm doing instead. And they generated CRUD first. Created, update, delete for customer orders, and they had already 3,000 Java code classes without knowing anything about the system. So I would say we must not do this. Otherwise, lots of Java projects will be canceled right now. OK? So this is the icons boundary control entity. I don't like the names, but I use them for years. It was created by UML and all tools, Draw.io, what else we have? All UMLs, Magic Draw and Enterprise Architect and Visio and the OmniGraphel on Mac. All tools support the icon, which is actually pretty cool. So the icon is actually, who saw already this? Not bad. So the people who already attended JavaOne once, right? So saw this, and but it's a cool hack actually. So okay, this is the icons. Oh, and this semantic is very simple. Boundary means you have something which communicates with the outside world, and this is usually in my projects REST. 90% of the time is REST. Control is choice of developer. If the class is reusable or more complex, you create a control. And entity is the data, often Java records right now. MVC, boundary control entity. If you read this, there's AJ modeling. You will find MVC. I misuse that for backend, and all my front-end project are also structured this way. What is MVC? It's similar to MVC and simpler, I would say. OK, now about apps. So the problem with consultants is NDAs. But one really important project for me is my blog, because if it's down, I get lots of emails. And recently, what I did is my blog ran on Roller, Apache Roller. And I wanted to, there are some problems with database and whatever. And I said, OK, let's migrate this to a new world. So I did it. This is not an open source project because it's not very pretty. I have to do some strange stuff. But the organization, what I did for me, just for me, this is my blog. This is why I can show you this. This is Atom. And this has some problems. I got an email, it doesn't work actually, so I have to fix it after the JavaOne. KPI is like metrics, and you see every package has the same structure. So there's RSS control. It means there's no boundary, so there is no direct external endpoint for RSS for my blog. Storage, so it means control. It means that you cannot access my storage directly. It's only used indirectly. And this makes sense to me over the years. And I got only good feedback from developers, because this don't make me think, right? So if I know the business concept and open, and it's done. And funny stuff, or funny, 2 weeks ago, I have to migrate an old legacy J2E project to a new world. And it was the same structure, but with old initial context, lookup, whatever, really old code. And this was really fun. So we deleted maybe 80% of the source code. And now it is so lean that there are clients, it was supposed to be killed, but right now it is good enough to survive maybe. And it will run on Quarkus soon. So it means you really have to focus on business and not the technology. And what happened in the last years, the frameworks and standards became more powerful. So what I'm doing, I'm replacing part of Java E and microprofile with Java SE, for instance. So we had in J2E HTTP client. I don't use it anymore often because I have Java HTTP 11 client, and the more standard, the better, right? Pretty cool. Questions regarding the structure. So the business, you see here the top level packages. This is the first thing you have to do is, okay, my blog has posts, and interestingly, there is a post resource, post path, and if you go there, you are on my blog. Okay?
What do you do for common code?
OK, very good question. Common code, maybe I did it here as well, is usually here in the root. It means, for instance, the version of the blog, this is the version, is and configuration, they are just on the root. But there's, and why? because if you have too much common code, it looks ugly. So, and I don't like to keep it there. And there is actually not that much common code, because what usually happens, developers have, create package commons or util. But if you look inside, there is a date operation, string operation. So what I will do is I will create one package dates, strings, or time zones, or whatever. So there is, but common utils, whatever is generic, I forgot to talk about that, mention this, whatever is generic, commons, utils, whatever, is not allowed. Because if you keep it this way, everything will be there after a while. Because the developers have no idea what to do, they will put everything to commons. Take a look at Java utils, Java util package, everything there. Maybe mistake. We have to ask Brian Gertz, actually with good architect question, we have to ask, there is an architect panel, whether naming Java util was a good idea, that everything is there. Because this is not cohesive. So classes in this package have nothing in common with each other, right? OK, cool. Very good. So we had this, and this is the packages now. And every package has boundary control entity. They can call each other, and cycles between packages are allowed. So this is otherwise, you spend lots of time hiding the cycles. A cool trick in enterprise project was using reflection to hide a cycle. So they had a cycle, but Sonar couldn't detect the cycle, right? So in one project, they get the best scores. It's like impossible how they're doing this, right? It's like 90% everything, all these stats were perfect. And I look at the code, and they use reflection to hide the dependencies, which is even worse, right? Then use Python is better then, right? So now, distribution remoting protocols, I would say at the beginning of the project, what I'm doing, we say there is no distribution, no remoting. Keep everything local as long as possible. Every remote call is a problem, right? Because you have to latency, timeouts, and all the stuff can go wrong. Lots of Java projects 10 years ago were proud to have 100 microservices. I never understood why. I mean, this is just crazy. So if I can, I build everything in one big blob. If it deploys fast and is understandable, why not? There should be reason for distribution. OK? And this can be extreme. So currently, I'm working in a serverless project. So we have Lambda. You know what AWS Lambda is, an Azure function, or yeah, exactly. So this Lambda has 150 endpoints, so which is a lot, and 500 classes. And it starts in under 2 seconds, and everyone is happy, right? So why we should split the Lambda? So I get, oh, the question is not modular. So yeah, we are not Modularity Inc. We have a business problem to solve. And if it works, then it works, right? So configuration. Everything has to be somehow configurable. But if you are lazy, so I'll show you what I'm doing if I'm lazy. So this is here the posts, and there should be a post store. So what I'm doing with configuration, I say I would like to have, I don't know, max collision title count. Oh, OK, the titles have to be unique in my blog or storage. So what I do here is I create the constants this way, and say this is the default value, and if I like, I can later configure it with properties, but I try to avoid files and properties. So XML files, YAML files are the worst from my perspective, but if you like, do YAML, but I don't get it. So application properties or XML or YAML or JSON is fine, but in all my projects right now, I mean, the whole deployment is gone, right? So the application server is there, and you deploy something in production, and it just wakes up, does something. No one does it anymore, I would say. So hopefully. Or you should not do it, because it's too complex. What you do instead, every configuration change, we redeploy the entire application. If you do this, it really doesn't matter whether you put something in application properties or, for instance, in enum. So before JavaOne, there was a task. We killed configuration with enums. We hard-coded this in enums. Why? Because we have to redeploy the entire thing anyway. Whether we changed application properties or YAML or enum, I would rather change an enum. OK, cool.
Yeah, how do you go about, like, how do you say that, platform deployment level specific properties?
Staging. Yeah. So all these stages are identical from the application perspective, but the values may be different. And the only remaining, I would say, challenge with the staging are DNS names. That's a problem. And in the cloud, so we have multi-account deployments. And every account, what we do is we register a domain with the cheap domain. With domain of the account is something which is cheap consistently across the company. So we always know what the domain is. And then we have one DNS, which is global, the nice one for the clients. So this is but the DNS is the last pain point. Everything else is identical to all accounts. And if you're in the cloud, if you think about this, every account is identical. So right now in Java, the first time in history, we have the chance to have production and development accounts identical. Because the accounts, the only difference is the number. Okay, so it is working. So if you have Kubernetes, you have to do this. So there's more work with namespaces, whatever. If you are serverless, nothing to do. So you can have identical deployments in all stages. Very good. Thank you. So now I'm more interactive, so I don't like to speak before the session. So you're waiting for the session. Very good.
No, but you do sometimes like have like smaller database or smaller like so you do
But this is
different configurations.
Yeah, but this is not a best practice. This is workaround. I would like to have identical databases everywhere, because we have the chance to do this, and this is very cheap. No, it's cheap. It really depends on database. So maybe this is another session, but what we do if you go the serverless route for enterprise, which makes sense because we don't have as much traffic as Netflix, for instance, right? So in this particular case, if you get several transactions per second, it costs you almost nothing. And because it scales, you get always production experience. Okay? But there's no slides on that. So there's the first talk, which I don't talk about that. So, but I try to have production and development stages as close to each other as possible. This is my goal. And there is no reason to be different from the beginning. So I would request in management that we have production like database, right? And maybe we will shut it down or up, but it should behave identical. And by the way, because now back to Java, if you have a Postgres in the cloud or whatever, I would like to test with Postgres locally. I'm not a huge friend of using H2 or Hypersonic, whatever, locally, or Derby and another database. And this is a no-go nowadays. Very good. Yeah.
What if you're stuck with old code and your company's not about renewing, or you have an old platform?
What then? What I do?
What do you do?
Yeah, what I do. If I get hired, I do whatever I think is good for the clients or necessary to do, and we couple the refactoring on every use case change. So if we have to look at old code and we have to implement a use case, we will be slower, but behind the scenes, I will always refactor the code, whether my client likes or not, or I say, okay, it's not. You know what I mean? And the most important thing is to be consistently slower, which is a big mistake. If you are fast at the beginning, the management is accustomed to speed. So what you have to do is, at the beginning of the project, be really slower than usual and refactor, and you can keep the pace, and you get more time for refactoring later. No kidding. Yeah. And this is what I do at the beginning. We automate CI/CD pipelines, everything at the beginning, so we need more time for that. And this is a good stuff for my clients. And my client asked me what they are doing. Yeah, we are increasing the test coverage indirectly, of course, because I don't care about test coverage. I care about the pipeline. But you have to communicate, in the right way. So pretty cool. So configuration, test. OK. Now we have no time, so I'm extreme in the talks, right? So at the beginning, unit tests are forbidden. Why? Because what happens in Java, what we are building, I assume we are building microservices. You call them via REST. So, and what developers love to do is don't even touch or don't even start the microservice. They like to have 100% code coverage without knowing whether it works or not. They just need the metrics. Okay? So what I do instead is, from the beginning, when you deploy an endpoint, like here, this is my block, but block is not a good, maybe I have, I don't even know. I have here the system tests, but I have no idea how they look like, so I'll show you a proper example, which is on GitHub, by the way. So you will see the commit from today morning. And OK, so what I do is, this is the microservice. And every microservice has to ship with a system test. And the system tests, in this particular case, if I go there, this is almost identical module, but this module accesses the external system. So this is what I wrote today morning, for instance, so to give you an example. And the question is why we are doing this. So this is how the tests look like. So I'm injecting the client, and I can test my IBAN, which is international bank account number, I think. So, so the question is, why are we doing this? Because in microservices, which problems do we have? Compatibility, backwards compatibility, versioning. But I was never hired for a microservice problem because a unit test was read. But we were hired because it doesn't work, it's too slow or whatever, unstable. So, and from my perspective, we have to mitigate the problems first and then play with metrics, okay? So my expectation is, from the beginning, if you implement an endpoint, give me all speakers. The first thing to do is to create a system test which fetches the speakers, okay? So, and if the speakers are coming, JavaOne speakers or attendees, from a database, right? From a database, then there's no logic. You just go to the database and you get the speakers. So there's nothing to test, unit tests, hopefully. And if I have the power, what I say to developers, you are only allowed to test when the, how to call it, the cyclomatic complexity is higher than 3 or 4. What cyclomatic complexity is, 3 means if, else, else. Right? So it means if there's just if, else, you're not allowed. It's too simple. Spend time wisely with automation and system tests. So now, why we have 2 modules, the microservice and system tests? The reason being is what I can do with it is I can check out all the system tests and test again against newer service if I keep them separate. Also, you are forced to get your interface and from outside see how it works. If I could put in Quarkus everything to one project, but this is too easy because it will always work. I'm working in tests and in production with the same classes, they are shared. I will never see mapping problems or whatever. Now the question is how to get added value out of system tests. And the cool story is now it's a trick. So this is a small trick, but I think a good one. So if you take a look at the Maven project, this interesting part is the system test here. There is a main part and a test part, right? And the main part in system tests is the client. And we have also some other classes here. So the cool story is if I run Maven package on this module, I get a jar, which you can deploy to Nexus, and I get the best tested microservice client for free. But if I would use here REST assured or any other test framework, I couldn't reuse the code. Okay, this is the cool part. Now, why we need this microservice clients for performance tests, for instance? I can have a small virtual thread or executor service and create some not perfect load, but good enough and see whether my system is testing so we can completely reuse the interfaces for free. Any questions? I will submit once a talk just about that because it's obvious, but we get faster and faster with the system tests. Now the crazy part. Unit tests come afterwards. So if you would implement complex business logic like string manipulation, would I always substring or whatever, right? So I always write unit tests for that because it's easier and faster. So you decide whether you write unit tests or not, but you write unit tests to, if you say, okay, this is complex logic, so I would like to test it, so you do it. And we never look at code coverage. So what we do instead, we measure the code coverage from outside. So how to do that? So you can launch Quarkus with Jacob or agent. And it tracks the code coverage. So now the cool story is you run your system tests, record the code coverage, and then you see what was called and what was not called. And the cool story is what was not called is probably forgotten code. So you can delete the code. So we are misusing code coverage to find unused code. Cool?
How do you trigger that in your pipeline for the system test?
The systems are triggered in the pipeline. And the pipeline looks like Maven package, skip tests first, then unit tests. Then if we have integration tests, Then the application is deployed to production-like environment. Serverless is Lambda, Kubernetes is a Docker deployment. We wait until it's available with health checks. If it's available, system tests are running. And this is usually a second stage. So we have one stage, the common build and system tests. Then the system tests are checked into a common repository. And then we have multi-system tests, multiple microservices, fully automated, or performance tests. And the performance tests for several reasons. So one reason is I would like to see are the timeouts error or whatever. And the other reason in the cloud, we have, for instance, how we call it, dollar logger. Because we know the memory and we know the time, we can calculate money spent, right? So with the performance test is a really nice hack to see how expensive the application gets, whether it was the right architectural choice to pick Lambda and not Fargate or not Kubernetes or Azure Functions or whatever.
But it's bundled within that same repository?
Yeah, this is the same repository. Okay. And if you go the eBank into my account, you will find you can clone it. So this example is available. My blog is not available because it's a hack. It is a nice hack, but you will find you will not understand why I'm still using RSS or whatever. It's just historical reasons.
You're not using test containers? You're not using test containers?
No. No, Quarkus has great support with test containers. I don't like them because too much magic behind the scenes. What I would like to have is control everything by myself. And I had actually a live stream with the Quarkus team, and we had a chat about that. Because if you do this, everything happens locally, but I would like to happen everything in the pipeline. I don't care about my machine. So my machine should be almost empty. Cool?
Adam, what do you do with dependencies on other services when you run your system tests? If your service is calling a service you don't.
Yeah, the other services are hopefully in integration stage. And if they're not, in worst case, we have to write a simulator. So we write a small app, and with all the hacks, so it should behave mostly like the external system. But if there's a fresh project, we build this, and it runs in the integration stage. So this is what happens. And another interesting question, what we do with tokens, which is always annoying. So we have a token-like service which logs in the users, creates tests, so it should be also automated. It's painful, but you have to do this from the beginning. Any other questions? Very good. Yeah.
In my business object, if I using a call from a red service, this is not an iteration part. I can test it using the unit testing in this part.
Yeah. This test, you can unit test it in the other module. So the other modules, your real microservice module, they have unit tests. And the system tests are tests from outside, you know. This is like remote tests, end-to-end tests, system. I picked the name from Wikipedia, system tests. This is why I name it, but this end-to-end test, it changes. Acceptance tests are lots of names, so I don't know. It's now moving target, everyone renames everything. I was also afraid, you know, before pandemic, there were lots of enterprise architects. After pandemic, people try to introduce you as solution architect. Just like, solution, why? I mean, what's the problem? Why you call yourself solution? Why? And no one knew. So, and then I tried to investigate. It's like, okay, there should be also a problem architect then, right? Or what? Why? If this is everyone is solution architect, then we can skip solution, right? So, but, or someone told to me, you are a builder. So, I don't know. I just program a little bit. It's like, no, we are builders. So, okay, I'm developer, but maybe I'm builder. So next time, come to build a bean would be actually cool, right? Build a bean, BB. Yeah, that's cool, actually. I'm a builder now. So tests, we had persistence. OK, so what persistence, how to start with persistence? I would say it depends. Because the modern Java is way more powerful than 10 years ago, right? So if we start with persistence, and it really depends, I assume it's no cloud, let's say OpenShift on-premise, Kubernetes on-premise, OK? So this is the mode. So I would start with whatever is simpler to use for you. So you have to get a feeling. So if there is actually no, I would say, you have no idea, I would start still with JPA, Java Persistence API, because it's very simple, but you have watch what happens. And in my one of my projects, currently my clients, they have crazy complex SQL queries, and they have them already. So in this particular project, I say, we don't need JPA. Why we should, you know, spend the time with all the queries, and there's no added value. And I think right now, you could use JDBC directly. Before you watch, you know, any Jockle or whatever, take a look how easy JDBC is. And this is what I did today morning. So today is boring a little bit, right? What I got the idea is to show you how it could look like, and this is the simplest possible example. And so what I did is, what about reports? So, and this is the reports resource, right? And here's account query, and the account query is JDBC plain without any external dependencies. So this is the first shot, half an hour hack. And this is what happens in my projects. I will really write this first, and then say, if there is some complex logic, I will convert this result set to a stream, maybe, or whatever is necessary. But for this particular case, everyone understands that. In all tutorials, JDBC is covered. And of course, I don't know, I would say it's even nice. Even have some, some error handling we'll talk about soon. So this is JDBC, and this is the fastest possible option. And you have a complete access to Postgres JDBC driver features or whatever. OK? So this returns only a string. I could return Java record very easily. So it is really, and in one of my projects, we will maybe use JDBC because lots of crazy SQL queries. So we can test the queries, in IntelliJ, copy them over, and we are done. And then I will even think how to copy them over efficiently. In one project, we stored these SQL queries in a file with .sql, and was loaded on build time, which was actually genius because we could test everything outside and then load it on demand. You know what I mean? Yeah. What's also cool, this is too simple. You can use multi-line strings to generate the queries. You have to be a little bit careful with SQL injection, right? But it is working well, and this is the same trick to create JSON for test purposes. So we copy JSON over, create multi-line strings, some replacement, and so forth. And we have write Oracle every other day an email when string templates will come out. So because this will solve a lot of problems, string templates.
But the thing is that you have like very dynamic environment. Like you either use this filter or you don't use it, and this attribute check and maybe not. And you can't use any query builder with this JDBC.
Yeah, this is not. The entire example is JPA. Yeah. I just wanted to show you how JDBC looks like. It's not like, and this is in project. If we were together in a project and you tell me this, yeah. It's like, OK, then we don't use JDBC or we do something different. Whatever you do should be a reason. Yeah. And what I would say in the Java doc, I will write, I'm doing this because, and then it's maintainable. Yeah. But if you do, I'm doing this because my architect told me, this is a cargo cult, and no one will know why it has to be so complicated, So I would say everything goes. Whatever you would like to achieve, you can do this, but you have to justify and write simple code. And you find yourself, OK, the code is too complex. So you have to redecide and do something different. So this is the idea. And this was maybe not as possible 10 years ago, but right now Java is so simple that we can constantly refactor the entire stuff and get faster and faster. Very good. Thank you. OK, how does strong opinions loosely hold, right? So you should be, it's like we do this, but if it doesn't work, justify and talk about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you always need to keep a fresh mind.
Yeah. Always. Exactly.
I only have a hammer, so I only use JPA.
Yeah. Exactly. But for instance, I wouldn't use Hibernate. Yeah. Because if we have JPA and Hibernate implements the JPA, this is unnecessary dependency without any added value. Right? This is for instance. Or I wouldn't start with Oracle driver and use Oracle's JDBC. I would use JDBC API, right? So there is no unnecessary dependency on products. So this unnecessary. But it's not like 10 years ago it was a no-go. If there was one dependency, everyone went crazy. Right now it's OK. We have not to do this, but we could if we have a reason for that. Super cool. So now persistence and my block, I had trouble with database. This is what I can show you. And my block, the persistence is file system. The entire block now, I migrated from, what was it, H2, that database, Hypersonic, 2,000 posts to a file system. It works perfectly. I will never have database problems again. And how long that did this roller was crazy, complex. My blog just one thing. I don't need complex query, nothing. You go there and there is like a static page. But 3 days it was migrated. Okay? So what it means is in the cloud, what we start with is S3 or blob storage. The cheapest solution is a hash map. Of course, if you already know you have complex joins, you cannot do this. But it is surprising how much you can achieve if you have a hash map and the value can be a JSON object. And with S3 is the highest compliance, is the cheapest storage, but it's not as convenient as SQL. But it's very cheap and very easy to use. And locally, you can use hash map. Okay? And OK, one thing about cloud. If you run something in the cloud, usually you also have to care about that. Cloud is empty, so you have to do something, right? Now, before I will have to set up a Postgres in the cloud, which is not trivial, subnets, IP addresses, private subnet, keys, backup, I would go to S3. Because setting up Postgres in whatever cloud, all clouds are not easy to use. So you will spend 1 week at least with backup, testing, whatever, exercising. So it's not easy. It's not like Postgres button. You have to do more than that. Okay? And it will cost you for a Raspberry Pi deployment 500 euros a month at least, with 2 CPUs and Apple Watch RAM, right? So
sorry, you suggesting that you cache your files in memory, like an email or a hash map or something?
On my blog,
yes.
it was just reading from SSD. It was fast enough, so I was a little bit concerned with the SSD, so I'm caching for that reasons, but it was fast enough without caching.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my suggestion is caches are forbidden. Test the performance first. Cache, test again. If no difference, remove caches. Because with caches, you get all inconsistency problems, whatever. So caches are evil. So there are lots of problems with caches in thing. Consistency is king. Cache is nice to have in one point of time. And it's just surprisingly, if you remove cache, how faster it gets sometimes. Because the I/O, for instance, it changed a lot. In the cloud, the network is crazy fast. It's even faster than local storage. So most of the decisions are just 20 years old, and you have to rethink this, right? OK, where is my next slide? Persistence. So got the persistence. It doesn't have to be SQL. It doesn't have to be JPA. If you're in the cloud, take a look, and object storage is the cheapest. And by the way, I have to mention cloud, because what I see is, this is the last slide, lift and shift. People are trying to lifting their existing application to the cloud, and this becomes so expensive that no one can pay for it, and then comes back. So, what you have to do is you have to use the right services in the cloud. Then it's perfect, but you cannot just pick whatever you have, move it to the cloud, and hope it is going to be better. And what I do, I explain it to management, because management believes that the own data center is nothing, and the cloud is everything, and they move it to the cloud, and everything gets worse. OK? Everything gets worse. Even performance, costs, nothing improves. OK, error handling and logging. So we can talk about system exceptions, runtime exceptions, or what I did here is this hack. So what happens here is I say, if there is an SQL exception, web application exception, error 500, this exception is automatically mapped to error 500. I'm done. There's no mappers, nothing in between. And in projects where we have to implement a specific format. So in one of my projects, we are forced to deliver JSON in specific structure. So in this project, we have specific exception. We do this behind the scenes, because this exception can have response, can create the JSON, and ship the exception error. OK? OK, this is the main trick. So if I find exception mappers in project, I say, OK, this is already a bad sign. So we can, or good sign, we can remove some code. OK? So this is web application exception. There is bad request exceptions. All the exceptions are already there. So the web application is the most generic one. This is actually best, not that good example. All other exceptions are available as well. Logging. So we can talk about if you allow logging, forget it. SL4J, what is this? Log4j, and millions of J's. But we don't need anything because everything is already built in. So what happens here? I'm injecting here the JavaLang system logger, not the JavaUtil logger, system logger. Why? As at bureaucratic projects, it kills all the discussion. Why? JavaUtil system logger is a facade to JavaUtil logger, so we don't need SL4J, nothing. So it means in my project, we just do this. And what I did here, hopefully, yeah, I did it. So this is the entire trick. So I'm injecting the logger, and it configures itself 2 lines of code. In serverless projects, we don't even have that. We have just an interface which logs. Also, you have to be careful with that. If you have a Netflix, this won't fly. But most of the projects, serverless especially, there is no concurrency actually, because Lambda is started and you are alone, right? So we use system out println sometimes because it doesn't matter. You will never be able to reconfigure the logger because you will have to redeploy the Lambda anyway. Okay? So it's pointless. So think about this. What requirements we had 15 years ago with the dynamic configuration, no more given. Okay? Also, logging and error handling, what we do in projects is there is a link between log levels and exceptions. So we say, OK, these exceptions are technical. They are logged always to this logger. And these are business exceptions logged to this log level. Cool. 1 minute. Crazy. Yeah.
Talk about your blog or how we can learn more from your.
I have lots of YouTube, lots of blog, 2,000 articles about that, but they are older on blog. But abstractions, modularity, very quick. Modularity, we talk about that, business modularity, and not like, we need Java modules to make something replaceable. It's like, OK, then I always ask, show me a use case. No use case, no modules.
When do you use Java modules?
For microservices, never. I'm already thinking about, because I have lots of automation script on my machine to use Java module to organize this. But not for server-side applications, never. No modules, no HGI, nothing. Documentation, JavaDoc, write stuff which is unusual. Obvious Java docs are forbidden. So what I see, this is a Java class. Okay, wow, right. So this is I waited 20 years to find it out. Or getters and setters. I mean, never. It's forbidden, right? And in JavaDoc, create snippets. There's a new feature, JavaDoc snippets in JavaDoc. This is really great, so you can provide examples, right? If you write JavaDoc, write a good one or nothing. Like, message to yourself in 2 years. Like, OK, this is, hey, Adam, 2 years, or BB, build a bean. External dependencies, forbidden, except there is a reason. So we try to remove everything. So why? Because I don't like to play with S-bombs and all this stuff. No dependency, no problems, right? Or you have one dependency. If you have Spring, there's just Spring, nothing else. So in my world, it's Quarkus, microprofile. And for instance, Quarkus ships with 500 extensions. I ignore all the extensions. I'm only using microprofile in Jakarta E, because Quarkus is replaceable. I would like to have the option to replace Quarkus with Helidon or Micronaut, for instance. And how to start? I would say automate everything. So this is how we spend time at the beginning. Pick boring technologies, so which are working, so you get more vacations. And end-to-end tests, and use standards. And standards means, and not ANSI standards, it means something which is well established. And common sense, no branches. For instance, in my project. So management want to branch, no feature branches. It means we are forced, every commit has to run. OK? And feature branches, it means we holding back features, and for marketing purposes, we are pushing everything at once. So, OK, these times are over. Even Chrome it just happens, right? And so system tests with code coverage, no problems, no patterns. So if you see factory Y, if there is no answer, delete it. Decoupling is not a best practice. Sometimes coupling is cool because we have compiler. If we decouple everything, we have Python basically. And use standards, more vacations. And we also need a strategy. What I mean by strategy is we have to know why we are doing this. If we migrate to the cloud, we have to know what is the goal. If we introduce Kubernetes and not run on Docker, we have to say why we're using Kubernetes. What feature of Kubernetes do we need? And in most projects, no one knows why we're doing this, and then forget it completely. Then it's like a vacation project or research. We can do whatever we like. For instance, right now in my projects, costs are paramount. So whatever they try to do, which is more expensive, is no-go, cost-driven architecture. In other projects, it doesn't matter, so we do different stuff, okay? Yeah, clear strategy, otherwise we get millions of services. And bipolar architecture, what I mean is cloud is completely different to on-premise. For instance, on-premise, Kafka is great. On the cloud, I don't like to run Kafka by myself. I would never use or install Kafka by myself in the cloud. But on-premise, just go for it, okay?
What would you use in the cloud then?
Built-in primitives. For instance, SQS, SNS, and Kinesis is the most managed service which ships with the cloud. This is what I will use. Because it's already there, you don't have to set up. It's usually cheaper, but you are depending on the service. So the next question is, how much time will it take from there to somewhere else? Thank you a lot. See you next JavaOne.